everyone. I'm Evelyn with Magellan College Counseling. I am personally based in Los Angeles, and I lead a fabulous team of counselors who are based all over the United States, and we work with students all over the United States, helping them to apply to college. In fact, I'm eagerly waiting to hear back from some of my students today to see if they got into UC Santa Barbara. Cross your fingers for me. Which happens to have, I happen to know, a very, very small engineering program, something like 1,500 engineers. So very, very tiny. If anyone here happens to be interested in the University of California as a whole, or UC Santa Barbara specifically, their engineering school is very, very small. So I am going to let my panel introduce themselves one at a time. They're going to tell you a little bit about who they are, their educational background, what their work situation is right now, work or school situation right now. And then I'm going to ask a whole bunch of questions, and you should pop into the Q&A and help me ask them some questions that will be helpful to you if you are interested in being an engineer. So let's have David BOWKER get us started.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Hello from good old Indiana. It's getting dark here on the East time zone. I am David BOWKER. I'm currently the director of the Office of Future Engineers at Purdue University. I've been there for a while, and I love it. My background, I do have a couple of different Purdue degrees. I actually started somewhere else and had some health issues because I lived close to Purdue, and came home and then took a class, and the next thing you know, I'm still there after all these years. So I really do love the community here. My undergraduate is in organizational leadership and supervision. Now it would be called, I think, closer to leadership technology within our College of Technology. So at Purdue, we have engineering, we have technology, we have a variety of things. I did a little work briefly out in industry. If any of you guys know about OSHA and safety and good things like that. I spent some time on a construction site as a safety manager, and decided I wanted to go back to school after that experience. And then I decided I never wanted to leave school. So I am still on a college campus. In my current role, I lead our office for Purdue. We are a large engineering school, over 11,000 engineers, 30% of the population. We do recruitment and outreach. I've had various roles within the College of Engineering. I've been working with them for 22 years. So we do talk to high school kids, parents, but we also do quite a bit of outreach on engineering and why the profession, why it's cool, how diverse it is, how broad it is, all the awesome things you can do. So hopefully I'll get to talk a little bit more about that stuff.
We will definitely talk about why engineering is cool. Phil, tell us about yourself and tell us why you think engineering is cool.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I am actually a retired engineer, and I started many years ago getting a bachelor's of mechanical engineering at Lehigh University. And I went into that because I was best in science and math and figured that was a good, safe place to go. And I'm not so sure that was a great idea because there's so much of a big world that it is. But I'm a big believer in lifelong learning. And I've got 2 masters after that. I got a master's in fluid dynamics because I was working on the aerodynamics of jet engine turbine airfoils. And so that involved a lot of technology. And you can imagine back in the 70s and 80s, computers weren't nearly as strong as they are today. That actually led me to get a second master's, and I went into a customer training. And this was also at Pratt & Whitney. That's one of the advantages of a large engine or a large company, is that there are ability to kind of move around to different positions and find something where you're passionate about it and the company sees you as a value. I got into that because I wanted to improve the way that I dealt with people, and I figured I was more of an introvert, so that was a good mix. It also was something that I became passionate about. one of the sidelights of working at a jet engine manufacturer was somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to learn how to fly? A friend and I are buying a Cessna, and we're looking for another partner." So I got a pilot's license and learned how to fly, and that just improved my ability to communicate with the people from the airlines that I was teaching. I did get that second master's at Central Connecticut State University in education technology. And I'm a firm believer in keeping yourself abreast and learning about new technologies and also teaching. It's something that as an engineer, you just can't talk to someone. You really need to have a communication and make sure that they're asking the questions that are meaningful to them so that you can answer them. But so I have several degrees, and I worked for many, many years, retired, and kept on teaching as a contractor. So it was a good career for me.
Well, one day you and I may talk flying, because I also have my pilot's license. I do not use it regularly. That's another story. Cynthia, it really is. It's an ugly story. Cynthia, tell us a little bit about your educational background and what you're doing now.
Hi, my name is Cynthia Grant. I am sort of a rare bird in this engineering world. My background is actually in architecture. I went into high school, all my friends were in business, and I wanted to do something different. I was in a humanities class and started sketching a lot of the slides and drawings. And I said, okay, I really like the arts and I really like the math. What can I combine the two together? And architecture came about. And I kind of researched, and I thought there was, let's see, there was Berkeley, there was UC Los Angeles, and there was Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And I really liked the thought of learn by doing, and I applied to Cal Poly and got in. And so I spent not 5 years, but 7 years at Cal Poly, because I got a dual major of architecture and city and regional planning there. I ended up working at one of their only architecture and planning firm, RM there, that are still there. The original R and M are still in San Luis Obispo. And then after that, I felt, there's something missing. So I went to graduate school. So I'm following in Phil's footstep, decided more learning, and David too, more learning is needed. So I went to my husband's alma mater, Texas A&M. I went there and got my master's at land development. They had a program to say, hey, for another year, you can get another master. So we went to Singapore at the National University of Singapore, and I got my master's in project management. We were supposed to be there for a year. We ended up being there for 5 years. 2 of my kids were born there. And to make this a short story, we actually ended up living in Kuching, which is the island of Borneo, and actually saw some action where they actually had a uprising of the headhunters. So what is that? Yeah, it was pretty interesting. But anyway, to get back into engineering, my realm into architecture engineering was, I'm going to give you a whole bunch of acronyms. I am an architect in the AEC world, which is the architecture, engineering, construction. I work for Syska, Hennessey, and we're one of the full service engineering firms that does MEP, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And we are in the AEC industry. So when you think of a built environment, anything that you go into an environment and you see anything that's built, a building, airport, Empire State Building, anything, university, and you go in and you see the built environment, anything that has air conditioning, anything, restroom, plumbing, electricity, those are what my company does. So I kind of segue from architecture because I married an architect and had kids, and I went into HR and recruiting. because I know the space and I kind of went in knowing what I'm looking for. I started recruiting and hiring people we need for my company. So that's kind of where I am looking at. And one of the things that I enjoy doing is giving back, going to schools, and also helping Evelyn in educating parents and also students of what to kind of look for in high school. What are some of the classes that they should kind of go towards, or what are some of the things to look for in college and internships and things that are out there, so that they can kind of shape and gear toward the career to a career in engineering or wherever that they feel that they have their passion.
Okay, so we'll
Right.
touch on a bunch of those topics. I appreciate your bringing all of that up. Fabulous.
Yep. Mhm.
All right, Emma, tell us about your journey.
Hi guys, my name is Emma, obviously. I'm super excited to be on this panel and get to talk to all of you tonight. And I can definitely put my email in the chat later if anyone wants to reach out with any follow-up questions. So I am a senior engineering student at the University of Virginia. I'm majoring in biomedical engineering, and I graduated high school in 2019. So kind of crazy, these 4 years have flown by. So again, any questions about like the, deciding which engineering school to use, getting acclimated to programs, what the engineering experience has been like the past 2 years, feel free to ask. So I chose University of Virginia just because I absolutely love the campus, and it's also a phenomenal engineering school, has great faculty support, research opportunities. While I've been a student, I have worked in a research lab here for a few years, which has also helped me to get a couple internships over the past couple summers at a local research company in my university town right by UVA, and then also one out in Minnesota where I was doing focused ultrasound research. So I've had a lot of different internship and research experiences, which I think is a really exciting part of being an engineering student, and which is why it's part of the reason I chose engineering. Like Phil, I was great at math and science, and it seemed a natural place to go, but I think it was also a little bit more than that. There's so much, as you've heard from everyone, there's so much you can do with an engineering degree, and really the world is kind of at your door. I recently accepted an offer to work for a large pharmaceutical company next year, which I'm very excited about. And that's one route you can take. You can do grad school, you can do med school, you can do consulting, all these different things. So engineering is definitely a really exciting place to be. And I'm really excited that you're all here and that you're interested in the major as well.
So I might need an engineer to build a French drain around my house, like right now, like at the end of this hour, because it is pouring in Los Angeles. There's words that most of us don't often say. Okay, so you guys touch on a whole bunch of issues that I want to get more out of. So let's talk about math. Sometimes by the time you're in 8th grade, your math path is kind of already set. So if you are the parent of a junior high school kid and they did not have the opportunity to take Algebra 1, so the path, general high school path looks like this: Algebra 1, geometry, Algebra 2, pre-calculus, that's 4 years. Calculus would be the 5th year. Sometimes kids get to pre-calculus and they say, do I have to take calculus? I'd rather take AP statistics. So let me hear from Emma and David first, and then Cynthia, I'm going to let you jump in on this, and Phil, if you want to throw something out at us too. But Emma, you've been through it the most recently, and David, you advise, new to college students every day.
Yeah, so I can take a lead on that question. So I would say my personal experience, I was in that accelerated path of math, so things looked a little different for me. However, I am surrounded by a bunch of students that weren't. Maybe their school didn't even offer calculus that goes that high. There's a lot of people coming in with that, which is something super important to consider. I wouldn't rule out engineering just because you're not, like, say, taking AP Calc BC. There's definitely a way for you to make it work. For example, there's a lot of room, not a lot of room, but there's ways to make it work, whether you take a summer class or a January term, or a lot of people come in and they just restart calculus anyway because they want to have a really solid foundation. So I came in and repeated a year of calculus, and I'm still graduating on time. So I think there's a bunch of options, a bunch of ways to make it work. So definitely don't rule out engineering just because you think you might be like behind in math or anything.
And I'll springboard on what Emma said about, typically the admissions offices are going to look to see what you had available to yourself as far as from a math perspective, and they're not going to hold it against you if you didn't have access, and or if you changed your mind late. That's something you can typically write within the common application. There's an area that you can kind of let us know different kind of things, and would encourage you to do that. If it comes down to stat versus calc, I'd say calc. For an engineer, stat isn't going to be important, and you'll use a lot of statistics, but you're going to take typically 2.5 years of math as an engineer starting at calculus. So you really want to, if you can get access to those courses, it's just going to better prepare you for when you get there.
Cynthia, you want to jump in on that?
Yes, I was going to say, actually, it really depends on the college. Having, my daughter go to a private college, and then my other son going to a public college and then out of state, their determination of what is needed is different. So that is a determination too. And then later, what Emma said about what the school that they see, high school, what the school offers. Our school offers a lot of AP classes, but other school may not have that opportunity. So whatever school has, and how high you go up to will be something that the college admission will look at. And if there is a reason, or you can, support why you did what you did, I believe they look at why you did what you did and the reason why, then actually, what your grade is and stuff like that. They want to look at purpose.
They're looking at context. That's the word that we always hear.
Yeah, the context, exactly.
Is the context, which does mean if your school doesn't offer AP Calc BC, obviously you can't take it. They can't hold that against you.
Yeah, exactly.
So every now and then I get an 8th grade family whose child is in Algebra 1. So they would normally be going to geometry in 9th grade. So then the path would look like this: geometry in 9th, Algebra 2 in 10th, pre-calc in 11th, calculus senior year. That's what it would look like if you took Algebra 1 in 8th grade. And I've occasionally had families like that say to me, should I take geometry over the summer before 9th grade to accelerate to get to Algebra 2 by 9th grade, which would put them at calculus in junior year? And generally what I tell them is there's really no advantage to getting to calculus by 11th grade, because if they do that, then the only thing left at their school is AP statistics, which, David, as you said, it's not a step up from calculus, right? From my conversations with admission offices, it's the math for kids who can't take calculus or won't take calculus. So it's definitely not a step up from calculus. So I don't necessarily see an advantage to doing that. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I would say one quick thing. I think it definitely depends on your school system, just because for me, there was calculus 1 and then also calculus 2. So for example, in that example, if the student did take geometry over the summer, then they'd be able to get to the highest calculus. However, again, I think it's definitely context. Like, just getting there is a lot, doing well in the class. And then also like extracurriculars play a big role, like showing that you're really interested in engineering and science, whatever it may be. So I also think there's like, and again, this is me speaking as a 22-year-old college student. I'm not a parent, but like, it's also important to have your summers and to like do fun things. And if
I was gonna say that. Are you going to enjoy yourself? Or are you going to stress your kid out? Because the thing is, they're going to be going to school already. They're going to be going away to college, and you rather have them where they may enjoy themselves in your preview than going away and enjoying themselves outside your preview.
Right. We have a bunch of questions in the Q&A now about this, variations of this topic. So if you have a student who took Calc BC as a junior, would you take AP Stats, or should they go to multivariable or linear algebra at a local community college? That would be something I would advise. If you know you're going to be an engineer, wouldn't you try to get to the next math up, which would be what, multivariable differential equations?
Look at also what university you want to go to and see. One of the things I noticed, and Phil, please correct me if I'm not, at Lehigh, there are only certain amount of classes and university that you can transfer classes from. Okay.
Yes,
So
I had that problem. I had that problem
you
where
cannot transfer community colleges to Lehigh. There's only approved schools that you can transfer. So you could take all the classes you want and they won't accept it. And there goes your summer that you spent taking classes and it's not going to apply to it. So you really have to check what university you get accepted to, what classes they will accept, because some AP classes don't even count towards university classes. Okay. And then some AP classes only count to place you on placement of where you will be in university classes. That's another thing too.
Well, and so to be honest with you, I only disagree a little bit when you say look at the college you want to go to, because different colleges have different rules for that. You know, some will give you credit for a 3 on an AP exam, but some will only give you credit for a 4 or a 5. Yes. So you can't really gear your decisions just toward one college. For what I have my students do, because I can turn anything into a spreadsheet, is make a spreadsheet.
Yeah, it is, make a spreadsheet and you see and you decide, and then based on your grades and what you have and your acceptance, where will you get the best bang for your buck in terms of how you would go.
That's right.
And also the value for your money and where you would graduate first and stuff like that.
But in the end, just assume that you'll spend 4 years in college and hopefully not more. But it's not really a race, right? So don't necessarily go to the school that gives you the most credits and where you'll start as a sophomore, because just consider it a 4-year experience. But again, questions from the chat, and Emma, I feel like this one might be for you. Although Phil, I feel like you wanted to jump in. So would you recommend that a student who got a 5 in Calc BC in 11th grade, but it doesn't really matter, repeat Calculus 1 and 2 in college, or go straight to Calc 3?
So I think there's a couple AP questions that I can kind of cover in one swoop. So in that one particularly, I took calculus. So my personal experience, I took Calculus BC senior year, got a 5, and then I retook Calculus 2 and then went into Calculus 3. So in that instance, I mean, I think it's really individual to your own experience, how well you think you know calculus. If you think that you might struggle a little bit, then I think it's worth like repeating. Even it might be a little bit familiar to you, but for example, like my Calculus 2 class was a lot harder than BC. So I mean, my Calculus 2 class at UVA. So I would say definitely a personal thing, but I would consider it.
I mean, and there's just a couple getting an A, right?
No, nothing at all. And there's nothing wrong with having a really strong foundational knowledge of a class that you're going to use the rest of your 4 years. And then there's one other question. My screen is kind of blocked. Where is it? So so from Jessica, Calc AB junior year. So you recommend Calc BC versus stats?
Yes.
Personally, I think and I think this is what David said too. I think personally, I would take the calculus class over stat. I didn't take stat in high school. I didn't take stat till my 3rd year of college. And again, every curriculum is different. But I think that I would probably recommend calculus.
Okay. David, Phil?
Yeah, I just wanted to interject that back at Lehigh, where I went to school in Pennsylvania, I got a 740 on what was an achievement test back then. And this cutoff was 750. So I tried to take the school test to get credit for that chemistry class. And unfortunately, I don't know if it was the time or the nomenclature that they used, which was slightly different than what I had in high school. I didn't pass that to get the credit. So you can get disappointed by that. I'm just wanted to interject.
Yep.
And most our students, and again, this is a Purdue thing, would say, take the credit and run, you know, but not all advisors say that. So again, I think Emma did a really nice job of, you know, how confident are you with the math? We have practice tests that you can look at, we have test outs, and I'm imagine lots of schools do as well. If you don't have to do those if you have AP typically, but those are opportunities to kind of see what might be the gap between what you learned in high school versus what the course, what Calc 1 or Calc 2 is there. And you can look at those things before having to make your decision on that.
Yep. So somebody, this is kind of a more of an Evelyn question. They said, if you took AP Calc BC and you got a good grade, but you didn't get a good score on the exam. So here is where we give you the very, very good news. For some people, it's very, very good news, and for others, not at all, that colleges are perfectly happy to admit you without looking at your AP scores. AP scores are not ever required for admission. They're very rarely part of the admission process. If you have good AP scores, you should submit them. And you can self-report. You can self-report any number of them, any or all of them. Colleges are looking at them a little bit more than they used to before the universe went test optional. So it's one of those things where, we're going to look at each student's, set of scores individually and decide what to submit and what not to submit. But grades are always more important than test scores. Grades are always more important than test scores from an admission perspective. And here's a crazy thing. Cynthia, do you look, when you're hiring someone, do you look at their GPA? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at more of their experience and what they kind of took. So in our industry, Syska is very good in that we have this program we call EDT, which is Engineering Development Training. We know that a lot of the classes, especially in engineering, aren't really focused in what our space is, which is the MEP or HVAC. Cal Poly has a class. They have actually in Cal Poly the last junior year, you can kind of concentrate on HVAC, which is heating, ventilation, air conditioning, but a lot of universities don't have that. So they come out with general fluid dynamics, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering with low or high voltage, but they don't really concentrate on the building. So we actually provide a 1-year program where we bring them in and teach them all our market sectors in aviation, healthcare, in commercial, in high-rise residential, and show them exactly what we do. So you actually in that 1 year determine, is this what I want to do? Because you may not decide, this may not be what you want to do, because you have to love it, because it does take some time, and it does take a little bit longer sometimes, because you work with architects, you work with contractors. There's a lot of stakeholders. You work with owners, and you work with a lot of trades, especially when you go into the construction site. Okay, so and then there's schedules and things that come into play. So we want to make sure that when you come into it, you know what you're getting into. So there's that program, and then you graduate and go to the next level and stuff like that. So during that time, we actually train you and teach you all that. So that's one thing that's different.
So this kind of gets us into the topic of internships, and let's talk a little bit about what role do internships play? Emma, you said you just got your first job in the real world. Tell us about what internships you had during your time in college.
Definitely. So, so I think one of the questions was asking about internships, like as a 16-year-old. I didn't do anything in high school. I was involved in like clubs and just kind of focused on my coursework. I had like a job working at a smoothie shop. Like I didn't do anything oriented towards engineering. But once I got into college, it's definitely, and I think it probably depends on the school and also on the major, the importance of internships, but they're important for engineering because, as Cynthia said, they're looking at your experience when you go to apply for a job. So my first internship was after my second year of school. So my sophomore year of school, and I worked for a focused ultrasound startup company in Minnesota. So they're pretty early in the clinical trial and FDA approval process, which might be big terms. I don't think I fully understood that in high school. So basically it's like they developed a new technology for treating cancer, and the national review board had to make sure it was safe. So I was kind of helping in like these preliminary tests to prove the safety and efficacy of our technology. And then from there, I launched into working at a research lab at UVA, which was also focused ultrasound. So this was great. It allowed me to develop a lot of basic research skills, since I've known since pretty early on I wanted to go into a more research focused career. And then from there, I had an internship this past summer. So after my junior year of college, where I worked for a company that works on a bunch of federal research grants. So doing, again, a bunch of different lab work, a bunch of different experiments and stuff like that. But I think the most important thing coming out of those internships is they weren't the biggest names that I worked for. It wasn't necessarily leaders in the industry, but I gained experience, like real skills I could talk about in interviews, real skills I could put on resumes. And I think that's what you want to look for, is something that's really going to allow you to be hands-on, and just allow you to have something to talk about when it comes to an interview.
I'm going to tag on to Emma about the 16-year-old. One thing that my daughter did, she really was into engineering, was Evelyn, the Science Museum in downtown LA. She was a docent. She went and she volunteered, and she presented a couple of Saturdays for a whole summer, and put that on her resume, and that got her started at least talking about science. It wasn't paid, but at least that showcased that she wanted to get into the science field and can talk intelligently about that. And that, showcased to the university that she was serious about engineering. And then from there, like Emma said, one of the things that a lot of the the companies do, they don't look at a serious internship until your sophomore year, because it is definitely a mutual benefit. We don't feel that a student will be able to gain knowledge, and we can't be able to impart knowledge to a student until they have that base of a sophomore year, okay? So that's when they understand, they can be a little bit more mature and be able to be, come in and exchange with them, talk about what we're learning and stuff like that. So Syska, we have a actually structured internship,
Nice.
10 weeks, 32 hours. And we go through, presentations, and we let them actually work on some projects and stuff. And by that internship, it is a segue into, if they work out, then we offer them the EDT entry-level position when they graduate. So that's kind of our funnel to the next level. And that's how we kind of get people in.
Phil, when you were at Pratt & Whitney, did you guys have, did you take college interns, and what was your process?
We did take college interns, and they were vetted, and they were there for probably about 10 weeks during the summer.
Yep.
I think it's an important aspect of an engineering curricula. And I know some colleges like Northeastern up in Boston, they offer a 5-year program where I think 2 semesters at least are spent at companies. And I think that just develops you. And also, as Emma and Synthia's have said, really allows them to see what you bring to the company, which is a lot of use and knowledge of new processes, and that's very helpful.
I think like Wentworth in Boston has a required co-op where you have to kind of get credit and also, get paid too, where you get the knowledge and they get, a grade for it, but then you're actually getting industry knowledge to be actually learning and then getting a grade for it and graduating. So yeah, it's a win-win situation.
Yep.
And I think that paid part is a really good thing to share, because engineers typically will get paid for their internships and co-ops, and you're going to hear the term co-op kind of thrown around a little bit. I think some schools define it a little bit different, but typically it's a couple different, going back to the same company or do a couple of rotations that you're kind of contracted to do at different companies. But this is a great way to help pay for school, no matter where you're going. It's as our engineering students, so I say, you know, if you're working for free or volunteering, you should be co-ops and internships are paid, and this is a good way to help pay for school, and of course gain all the most important piece is that awesome experience like Emma talked about.
And,
so
and is my college going to help me find that internship, or do I have to go find it myself?
I would say usually most colleges have job fairs. They do have, I would say they have STEM job fairs and they have engineering jobs fairs. I have learned that most of them are during January and February for certain, like East Coast. I've learned the West Coast is a little different. They may be more in February, March, April. So I don't know. That's what I'm just learning, just because engineering is a little different from architecture. Right. so yeah, so that's what I've learned. So you really have to check it out. The university, I will tell you, have a lot of resources. Yep. One of the things that you have to do is don't be shy. Go look in there. You know, when you go in and become a freshman or whatever, besides the clubs and association, go to the university and go to their student services, go to their job, places, and you know, they have resume making. They have different things that you can really get a lot of feedback and help from. That is all paid from your student fees.
Yeah.
So you need to take advantage of that.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that was really helpful for me. I think it's a little bit harder if you're looking to go like to a completely different part of the country. Like for me being in Virginia, I was looking to go back up north. So the career fairs didn't have as much. But I found it so helpful to go and just practice talking to people, get the experience of talking to different professions, even if it's not exactly what you want to do, not the exact location. But the career centers have so many resources, and like UVA has an online like job site where you can put a bunch of filters, it'll pop up with jobs you can apply to. And then also one thing that I found really helpful was my first year, with the help of a career center representative, I made a resume, and there wasn't much on it besides my high school experiences, but I've had the same general resume format that they helped me make since then. And wow. I just keep building and adding stuff and taking stuff off as I get older. And so I'd say make sure you kind of, and even in high school, you can just start collecting a list of what you've been involved in, and it's helpful for college when you're doing the Common App and stuff like that, but definitely take advantage of the career center.
Okay, so here's a great question, and I want to bring you into this communication issue, Phil, but I have a really quick question for Cynthia and Emma. But David, you might have an opinion on this too. How long should your resume be if you're in high school? And if you're in college, how long should your resume be?
1 page.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If it's too long, especially when you're just a high schooler or a entry-level college student, there's you don't have a lot. Yeah. So don't talk too much. just give the basic, give, you know, maybe have an intro of what you're looking for. Yeah. You know, what you have done, you know, if you have done some high school you know, work, you know, have your college, and then maybe some first year association, if you were a president of some sort of thing, showcase that, because that's leadership, you know. Yep. Do that, but then that's about it. And then later, then present yourself in an interview. I mean, one of the things I do tell people is your resume is the first thing that showcases who you are. So you want to make sure that it stand out, but you also want to make it stand out as a positive and not a negative. Okay. So for me, as a talent acquisition manager, I get a pile high a resume. So I need to look at it and say, okay, is it going to go to the yes pile, or is it going to go to the no pile or the maybe pile? I want to go into the yes pile, right? You could be going to the maybe, but you don't want to go to the no pile. Right. So you gotta have to decide where it goes.
Yeah. But one of the reasons that you might go to the no pile is if you just give us more information than we can possibly.
Well, the no spell is either, okay, here's a big one. Spelling mistake, okay? Spelling your name wrong, spelling your city wrong, spelling your school wrong, anything like that. And then grammatical, you know, one of the things that spell check, okay? Just do that. And even if you have spell check, have someone else
Read it.
proofread it, because sometimes, you know, SIT is spelled right, but do are you saying sit, or were you saying seat, SEAT, you know, so really you want to, because the thing is like we said, it's the first impression. You want to make sure the first impression comes out nice. Okay. And I know that people make, you know, mistakes. We're all human, but still you want it to be your first impression.
So Phil, you told us you were an introvert, and you told us that, you know, somewhere in your career path, you started to learn how to interact with people better. So this is something that engineers are not really well known for, right?
Yes.
However, someone very smart once said to me, as an engineer, you can't get paid if you can't communicate with people what you're doing. Right. So talk to us a little bit about the value of communication and how important it is to be accurate.
I think that's a critical skill in life. And that's one of the things that you see is you'll see these great technical people who can't communicate either their ideas very well, or they can't say exactly what this process is. They don't back up the process that they're creating. And it just really diminishes you in terms of where you can go. So communication is just so important in relationships, in work process, and you know, you can't have enough of that. That's why technical writing is a great skill to have, and it's something that some people are gifted with that. Others, like myself, I love having computers where they can do my spell check, because my father was a terrible speller. He was also an engineer. I'm a pretty bad one. So I tend to not even give written notes because of that. I'll make something stupid, or I used to. Of course, as you age, you do learn a lot more and you become better at these things. So yeah, communication is critical in engineering.
Emma, David, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and kind of say, and a lot of schools are focusing on that within engineering. And I know a lot of universities are doing, I mean, teaming. So, you know, the thought of just kind of sitting by yourself on a computer, you know, trying to figure out by yourself isn't really how engineering works at all. And so I think we're starting to see more integrated within the curriculum, but also those outside activities, the internships, clubs, all of that can help build those communication skills. And they really are critical. And you know, I always say, you know, as an engineer, if you can, you know, you need to be able to, you know, communicate and work with diverse people. You'll be an awesome problem solver, and you'll be able to adapt to technology. Who wouldn't want to hire you if you can do all those things, regardless of what the job is, right? As the world is changing and people are changing and all of that. So yeah, communications is that's going to help you probably get a job. I think Cynthia would agree. Your communication skills more so than your Calc 1.
Correct. I mean, I will say that there is always a job for all type of people. But unfortunately, the people that usually get noticed or advance a little bit faster are the ones that can present, can communicate, and can relate to other people, just because they're able to be the person that is relatable to everyone.
Yep.
You know, someone that is there that has the idea but not able to relate, has the value, but unfortunately it takes them a little bit longer to be able to present their ideas, and it's a little harder. Not that that diminishes their value, it just takes a little bit longer. And I feel that, you know, Syska and I will say other companies will try to help the person and provide them with training to help them, but it still takes a little bit longer and harder to kind of bring them along. So that's one of the things that we try to do, especially in college and also in continuing education, is making sure that that person is well-rounded.
Yep.
So that they can continue and grow in their development and their career.
Yeah, and I just have 3 really quick things I want to say, just because this is like something that's so important to me, because I think, I guess, starting from my perspective, once you get to be a 4th year, a senior engineering student, everyone can do math and science. Everyone's gone through 4 years of all of that. If you can communicate and be yourself in interviews and walk right up to people at career fairs and be like, hi, it's so nice to meet you. My name's Emily and this is me. It's going to set you apart, as everyone's saying. The second thing, I was super quiet in high school. I wasn't very outgoing, you know, like I was kind of like, I don't know. And then I came to college, and it was my chance to kind of break out of that shell and to be myself and to communicate with people. And so right now, if you're listening and you're like, shoot, like this is me, like I'm really good at math and science, but communication, not so much. Don't worry. You have so much time to develop those skills, and you develop them by working in teams and engineering, and also by growing up too. So you definitely have
say
time
that you mature when you go away, and then also you discover who you are, because you have time to be yourself and learn who you are in college, and then you become confident, and then
Exactly.
you can, yeah.
Exactly.
You discover what you like and what you don't like, and that's important too.
Yes.
And internships will help you figure that out too. It's okay
Yes.
to have an internship at a place where you're like, I would never want to work here. This is not
because
what
at least you know that that's not what fits your, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
or the
So-
area, right? You know, whatever,
Exactly.
manufacturing
Exactly.
versus quality control versus, I have students come back and go, I don't want to do that.
Okay, so that leads me into the last topic that I want to talk about, which is, but I also have somebody with her hand raised. So here's what we're going to do. Diane, I see your hand raised, and as soon as we finish this topic, we'll bring you in to ask your question. But if you believe that you in high school that you want to be an engineer, but you really don't know which direction, do I want to be an architect? Do I want to be in aerospace? Am I into mechanical? What are the tools that you will encounter in the next few years in your life that will help you make that decision? And when do you need to make that decision? Emma, when did you declare your actual major?
So I'm smiling because I think I was a little bit of a special case in this regard. So my sophomore year of high school, I was like, okay, I really like language, really like math and science. I think regenerative medicine, tissue engineering is really cool. Okay, I'm going to be biomedical. That doesn't happen for everyone. I have friends so I officially declared biomedical at the end of my first year. So I had an entire year of college. And again, it's different at every school, where I got to go to different major nights, hear about different majors, meet older students, learn about the different curriculums. And that was helpful because it solidified that BME was my choice. And BME stands for biomedical engineering, if you're not familiar. But that also helped some people who came in saying, yeah, I definitely want to be biomedical. Some people were like, nope, you know what? I'm going to do mechanical. I think another important point is there's possibilities to switch. You know, like at a certain point, you may feel like you're really locked in. But for example, like I'm finishing my biomedical engineering degree. If I decided I really wanted to go work in like aerospace or something, maybe I try to find a way to do a grad school with that, or like network and try to find people in that field. So I think right now, like whatever you're interested in, kind of go with that, roll with that, make sure the school you're applying to at least has the one you're interested in, but then you have time to change and you have time to grow and develop your interests and switch to another type.
I second that. I would say it really depends on the school. Cal Poly kind of sucks you in, and you determine right when you sign up. Architecture is 5 years. You go in. First year is design all the way. So it really depends. Okay. Other school, you go in undeclared. You can pick and choose and whatever. I would say, you know, the internet is your source of information. You know, Google, go look and see. One of the things that you really need to decide is, what is your interest? What can you decide and say, what do I want to do for the rest of my life that I don't mind doing? I mean, seriously, you have to say, I mean, because if it's going to be, I mean, one of the things that a lot of people say, is it a job or is it something that you enjoy doing that is not considered a job, you know?
But
because it turns up to be, if you are enjoying something that you're doing, it doesn't turn into a job. There's something that you actually enjoy doing, and you don't mind doing it for the rest of your life. Some people are people that are so friendly. They love talking. They love talking about their work. They love building things, and they would like totally be out in the, I don't know, desert if they're not able to talk architecture or be in a built environment or space like that. So it really depends. I would say.
David, you're in the Office of Future Engineers. This is kind of your jam, yeah?
Yeah, well, at Purdue and lots of schools, and they talked about it, you come into a first year and it sounds somewhat similar to Emma's experience, and you're going to get exposed to all 17 different majors and be required. You'll get quizzes over the different disciplines, which will be your easiest engineering quiz, I swear. All those sorts of things. And so you have some time to explore as a first year student, although some schools like University of Illinois, 2 hours from us, it's a direct admit. So it really kind of depends on how passionate you are about certain things and looking into that. But I think it's just important to kind of point out that engineering, and Emma kind of alluded to it, I mean, it really is pretty broad. Your degree is probably going to dictate at some level your first job, maybe your grad student opportunities. But after you're out working, it's all about the projects that you're on. Yeah. And I've had students who are materials engineering, doing chips out west, and now they're doing all environmental, on how do we make chips and reuse the water. And, she's now in charge of all of that. And I'm like, do you know much about environmental? She goes, no, but I know chips and I can learn. I know how to learn. Right. And
wow.
So I think it's important to say, what gets you excited for those 4 years, looking at the curriculum, knowing that it can broaden out, and you could go into medicine and things like that. You could go government, you could go education, you could go law. I mean, there's just so many different opportunities. As far as, in high school, I know some high schools have some sort of either technology or engineering curriculum. That's a good way to dip your toe in. I will say, do not do them in lieu of the math and science that we talked about at the very beginning, only in concert, because we're going to look more at the math and science courses. There's also camps across the country and we're doing 1 credit hour courses now in civil and aerospace for high school students. And I think I'm sure on the West Coast and East Coast, there's all sorts of camps and things. And then the web, as Cynthia said, and I can put, Engineering Go For It is a good one through ASEE, the American Association of Engineering Education. Discover Engineering is a pretty good website where you can actually click in videos on what an aerospace engineer does.
Wait, what's it called? What's it called, David? So
Discover Engineering. And I can probably I can stick them in there if you want. And then the other one it's called Engineering Go For It through the American Society of Engineering Education. So those are some ways to, as Cynthia said, the web is your friend.
Yeah. My daughter did the engineering innovation program at Johns Hopkins. Yeah, so she did that her sophomore year.
Okay, I'm trying to pull up Engineering Go For It, but what I did just drop in the chat is a link to the Engineering Grand Challenges, which I am fascinated by. And there's if you hover over challenges, there's basically 14 challenges that all have some sort of connection to engineering that will each make the world a better place. And there are a couple colleges that actually ask, when you're applying, they ask you to choose one of these grand challenges and, discuss why it's important to you. So honestly, I love that website. But I'm trying to pull up some other, because people are asking questions about what is there a quiz I can take? How do I know if I'm a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer, right? How do you know?
Well, and another thing we sometimes try and the question we ask is, what difference do you want to make in the world?
Yes.
Because with engineering, it's you're creating things that help society. Right. So is it the environment? Is it energy? Is it human people like Emma? Is it biomedical? Is it It can be a variety, thinking about, do you want to feed the world? Do you want to, what are some of those things that you're passionate about? Is it sports, designing sporting equipment because you love sports so much? So kind of thinking about how you want to make that difference.
Yes. Phil, you were going to throw something in.
I just wanted to mention that I got a mechanical engineering degree because that seemed to be the broadest. And there's just a lot of different areas you can go into. College is also for learning how to learn. And that's something that you'll find all through your life. You're going to have a long career. And so your passion may change. I was put into supervision for a year and I just didn't want that. It wasn't a good fit. I had ex-union employees so I wanted to be in technology and do things in groups with other like-minded engineers. So it's something that I don't think this is a critical thing. There are certain, maybe chemical is a path, chemical engineering, electrical engineering. There's a lot of analogous situations in terms of E&M, electricity and not magnetism, but mechanical. So, you learn one, you can do it. And if you get a passion at some point that you want to take a different direction, that's when you go get a couple courses and you can follow your passion. That's what I want to say.
Beautiful. All right, I'll tell you what, let's let our audience ask their questions out loud. So Diane, I'm going to allow you to talk. We're not going to be able to see you, but we're going to be able to hear you when you unmute yourself. And then Maya, will go to you next. Diane, are you there? If you're not there, I'm going to promote Maya. So Maya, if you can hear me, unmute yourself. Everybody raised their hand and then walked away. All right, so nobody's Maya put her hand down. All right, so we'll unpromote you. Remove. Okay, so that was fabulous. And David, thank you for that link in the chat. Let's see. So we did that. What are the here's a really good question. What are the pros and cons of going to get your master's degree right away as opposed to getting a job? How about this? David, what percentage of your engineers who graduate from Purdue go into industry right away, and what percent of them go directly to graduate school?
It varies a little bit based on discipline, but as a whole, usually somewhere between 22 and 25% go on to graduate school, and then the rest are typically going into industry. But again, schools, like MIT, I think you see a larger percentage probably going on to graduate school. I think it depends somewhat on the school. But I'll let my maybe Phil, the past practicing engineer, answer a little bit of that. I think quickly I'll just say I think it kind of depends on what it is you want to do. I feel like it's always good to get some industrial experience. But if you want to do research and development or something like that, you're going to need master's and or PhD to do those sorts of things. Or if there's a certain topic that you're just so passionate about that you want to get into semiconductors and only semiconductors, maybe you look at a master's in that area. But I think it kind of depends on what your interests are, and that would be my take. I don't know, Phil, what do you think?
A lot of companies have work study, and that's something that's really worthwhile. I worked at United Technologies, that's now Raytheon, and they offered free tuition, so everything was paid for. So it was kind of a no-brainer to keep on learning, because if you do want to get anywhere, you do have to specialize and become knowledgeable in some maybe esoteric specialty. But and then later you change and you take another course. But it really depends on the individual in terms of, can they fund to go into that specialty right away, or do you have to go start earning a living? There's some great programs out there. I know for like medical engineering, where you can go and get your MD along with mechanical engineering. I know Lehigh had that program set up. And there you could develop, mechanical devices for people. And I always thought that would have been interesting. So really, as Evelyn says, it really depends on the individual and the situation that you're in.
So Emma, are you planning on getting a master's degree after a couple years?
Yeah, so yes. So yes, to answer your question. And I think also kind of going off of what Phil said, I think what I found is that at some point it stops being a race and you just do what works for you. And that's what I've really found as I've tried to network and talk to people in the entry level space about why did you get a PhD right away? Why'd you go to graduate school? Why didn't you do those things? It's like because it worked for my personal life, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, or I didn't. For me, I decided that I need a little break from school and I don't know exactly what I wanted to go to graduate school for, whether it be whether I want to switch paths and do an MBA and go into business or something in engineering. So I'm planning to work for a few years, and I'm luckily working for a company that offers tuition assistance, which is a really nice benefit, especially in your first 2 years of working when you don't have a lot of extra cash. And then I plan to go to graduate school at some point. But for me, I think if you don't know like exactly what you want to do, it's expensive and it's a lot of time. And I think give yourself the time to kind of just experience working for a few years and then go from there.
And I would just add to that, don't expect to have your whole entire life planned out at age 17, right? Like
Yes.
Or at age 22.
or age 22, or I always tell people I found my dream job at age 38, Okay, so I'm a slow learner, but when you go to college, you will meet advisors and professors and internship supervisors who you right now today you don't know that you're going to meet these people. So you have to like give up the idea that you can plan out the whole next 40 years of your life. You can't. And just be open to, I am so not a go with the flow person, but go with the flow and meet who you meet, and things will happen. And like everyone has been saying, the more people you communicate with and connect with, and we mentioned this, we did the business panel a month ago, the more people you link in with, right? Like Emma's going to link in with me as soon as this panel is over. The more people you link in with, the more future contacts you have. And just know that nobody expects a 17 or 18 or 22-year-old to know, to have everything planned out. So just be open to letting what happens happen. And your job in that little microcosm is to you do it the best you can, and things will fall into place the way that they're supposed to. That's my brilliant advice. Does anyone want to share just like a minute? We'll do a quick little quick round. Again, I'll tell you what, we'll do it in this order. We'll go backwards. Cynthia, Emma, Phil, and then David to wrap us up. Just a quick minute of advice for high school students and parents.
I think to wrap it up, just enjoy or don't get too bogged down in making sure you get all your AP classes. Because sometimes not all AP classes are accepted. So just make sure that you have all your classes that you need done, that you get the best grades.
Yep.
If you have to do your SAT scores, get those taken care of. I don't know if they're still taking it, because I know after COVID they weren't doing it. So I'm not sure what's going on. Go do your college tour. Choose the university that best fit you for your holistic you in terms of your
I'm gonna cut you off. Cynthia, I'm gonna cut you off. That was 2 pieces of advice. You're good.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Take hard classes, get good grades, pick the college that fits you best. Okay, Emma.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I just put my contact information in the chat as well. So if you have any other questions for me, please feel free to email me. I could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
But I think my biggest thing besides classes and school, because we talked about that all the time, is take care of yourself. Really like put your mental well-being first, have a work-life balance. I mean, I know you can get really, and I'm saying you, but me, can get really caught up in classes and trying to be the best and be the smartest and achieve the most, but you don't sacrifice yourself and enjoying the time along the way. So just make sure you do things that you enjoy outside of classes too. You take time to hang out with friends, hang out with family, to have a passion and an interest outside of class. So yeah, take care of yourself and enjoy it.
Fabulous advice. Phil.
I would say that, yes, enjoy your high school years. Choose a college that matches you well. As an engineer, I was coming out of high school more introverted than most, And so I chose a college that had not many women in it. And that was a strain, I must say. So I think you have to take a look at yourself honestly, and also look at the school and make sure that it has things that are interesting, not just in the engineering, but also in the extracurricular.
And just know, unfortunately, in my position, there's lots of really good engineering schools out there. And so going back to that, really finding that fit is really important, and trying to do that. But also know that there's quite a bit of research out there. It's not as much about where you go, but what you do when you get there. So when you're in college, wherever you end up, and even if it's not your first choice, go all in. Do internships, co-ops, research, global, or at least look at all those kind of things that are going to help you grow as a human, as well as open up doors for your future professional life.
That is really, really fabulous advice. That is true for anyone studying anything. So thank you for that. Thank you guys. For those of you who don't know David, he said it. He's at Purdue University. He's on Eastern time, so he stayed up late with us. Thank you for doing that. So is Emma, but you're a college student, so you're always staying up late.
You can handle
for
it.
a few more hours. It's all
my
right.
bedtime. You still have to study.
9 o'clock is past.
I went to a UConn game last night and
There
I
we go.
skied all day being retired. So, and I'm on the East Coast, so I'm going to go to sleep soon.
There you go. Well, thank you. Thank you, all of you, for staying up late with us. And Cynthia's here. I think you're here in LA with me, right?
Yes,
So
I
thank
am.
you for joining us. Everyone, like I said, we have recorded this. We will put everyone's contact information in the blog post. We'll get it up by the end of the week. And thank you, panel. You did a fabulous job and great advice on engineering. And thanks everyone for being with us. Have a great night.